Morning, everyone. Yeah. I'm always fascinated by, just to see how we all act. And so much is revealed in a group way when you watch some sort of big athletic event. It's just amazing to me when you see like 100,000 people somehow unifying, all these disparate people unifying in their love for their own team. And of course, hatred for the other team. That's I'm not recommending it as a spiritual practice. But still, what is it? You see all these people like waving white flags. Some of these college teams, they give out white handkerchiefs or something to their students and fans, and they're all waving it together. I guess it's intimidating to the other team or something. But where does that come from? Buddhism is this path to getting at reality instead of the detritus kind of floating around in our mind and the stuff that we get stuck on, and actually because of the truth of cause and effect, making our lives more complicated, even resulting in suffering and dissatisfaction. How do you get out of that? So we've been reading, on Thursday nights, this book, not a religious book, a book called Buddha by, I think it's Michael Carithers, is that his name? Yeah, he's a scholar. He's a Brit, written in 1983. It's the story of the Buddha's life. And we've been reading the section where he's talking about what the social context was in India at that time, because there was lots of change going on. And how the Buddha took so many teachings, but then transformed them. So an example of that is our the four immeasurables: love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Which is, what page is that on? Thank you. Page 11. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the causes of happiness. That's love. Wanting others to be happy is love. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering, a little bit more profound. That is compassion. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. This is like spontaneous joy. You see a little baby smiling and you feel smiling. Garam Rinpoche said that's the easiest way to come to enlightenment. You just think about the great deeds of the great spiritual figures. It doesn't have to be labeled spiritual, just any positive thing happening. Your mind is blending with that. And if you can generate joy out of that, that's the simplest way to come to enlightenment. And then finally, may they abide in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to near and far. This is the great equanimity. You have the same love for that person that's putting the rope around your neck and is going to pull the switch as you do for your own child. It can't be phony. And it doesn't mean that you don't try to get the rope off of your neck and run away. But you stop hating the people that are doing that. His Holiness Chetan Rinpoche, the second time here in Rochester, was giving a talk at Nazareth. And it was at the time when the genocide was going on between the Tutsis and the Hutus in Rwanda. And a person I knew from some time ago was there at the talk, and he was very much upset about all this. And he kind of went off and kind of a rant. He was asking a question, but it turned into a rant. You know how these things can do. And he was talking about all the evil people doing evil things in the world, and blah 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 blah. And the Lama said, "You have to have compassion for the killers." That's so radical. That so completely turns the world upside down. And again, it doesn't mean that you don't try to save other beings. You don't try to save your own neck. You don't sit there and let someone slaughter your family. But you don't have to hate that person. That's what's so remarkable. So my point is, these people at a football game, all wildly, it's all coming from mind. Our actions come from our mind. Our speech comes from our mind. So Buddhism goes to the mind because that's the creative aspect. Now, first, in a very kind of crude way, we're dealing in what might roughly be called the scientific world, but of course that isn't the world of quantum physics. I'm talking about the apparent world. Things as they normally appear to us as human beings. We're dealing with that level. So the fundamental self-liberation teachings say we just stay away from we learn to recognize the arising in our minds of the painful emotions, the afflictive emotions. And it's said to be 84,000 of them, but simply, basically greed and all sorts of clingings, desires, lusts, everything that we want something, and then aversions, everything we want to push away, hatred, impatience, all of these things. But then all the more complicated ones like jealousy and resentment and envy. But we learn by looking at our mind, this inner look, we learn to see them arise. And then we recognize them, and then we stop acting out of them. So that's self-liberation. The basic Buddhist vow is to do no harm. Because when we act out of those things, we're harming. We can momentarily, climb the mountain or something, but we've been stepping on other people to get there. So it's just this abandonment of our triggers, basically. Now, interestingly, that isn't recognizing our true nature. It's just stopping the clouds from covering the sun. But we're not really talking about the sun. We're not talking about our true nature at this point, but it's on the path there. So suddenly this is said to result when it's fully accomplished, but you don't have to go in these stages either. When it's fully accomplished, this person is called an arhat, means a conqueror. Man or woman, arhat. One who has conquered the afflictive emotions and then can rest in a state of peace, because that's actually our true nature. Even though we haven't realized our true nature yet, we're still just living in the benefits of the true nature, which is just peace. And in the text, it says that you can stay in that way for an eon because it's so peaceful. But deeper, and this is what the Buddha did. There were many teachings like this at the Buddha's time. In fact, in this short mindset prayer that we had here that I just read, they correspond to mental states. So in the superstructure, you might say, the description of our inner life, the words come up sometimes, 3 realms. What are they talking about? Well, one is the realm of desire. That's where we live. Also the animals, like sensual gods, like the gods of Greek mythology, hellish beings, tormented beings, very powerful, but demigods, that kind of thing. That's all the realm of desire. Everything is motivated by desire. And the Buddha started out speaking that way because your desire to be free from desire is a desire. So we're going to deal with desire. This is where we're at. It's like, practice is not just saying, okay, I'm just going to take my hatred and just take it out like I take the trash out every night. It doesn't work that way because we're wired this way. Years ago, we had a man who was a teacher, an art teacher, and he came here to the Dharma Center, and he ended up doing a 3-year retreat with Lama Tarchin out in California. And for some reason, I wasn't on their board of directors, so I would fly out to California every once in a while for a board meeting. And Lama Tarchin was so wonderful with board meetings and like that. He said, meetings. He said the word in Tibetan for meetings is that fighting place. And he was great because he was the student of one of the great teachers of 20th century Tibet, who told him to go to America and teach the Ingis. That Tibetans call us Ingis. English, that's how they say English, because the first Europeans they had contact with were English. So we're all Ingis. Go teach the Ingis. I don't want to teach the Ingis. No, you have to go teach the Ingis. So he did. And he did a wonderful job. But he landed in Spokane, Washington for some reason. And he just attracted all these kind of extreme California hippies. And they were completely impractical. And then they had me, lawyer on their board. So they were going down the tubes because they were paying people to drive to the Dharma Center. They were buying their gas, and they were just doing all these things. And we had this meeting where finally we decided, well, we have to do things in a more business-like way. So there was a motion to that effect, and it was going around, for people to vote on it. So I raised my hand, and I voted for this reform. And it came to Lama Tarchin, and he had 2 hands and 2 feet up at the same time. And hence the Vajrayana Foundation is still there doing wonderful work. But nonetheless, I've completely distracted myself now. Lama Tarchin. So this man did a 3-year retreat under Lama Tarchin. And I was at one of these board meetings, and they were trying to think, how can we make a little more money to pay for all our expenses? And someone suggested, well, Lama Tarchin was an artist. Why don't we do some art programs that the school system might plug into? It's not religious. People would be really interested in it, though. That was kind of hot at the moment. And everyone said, and that man that's just about to come out of 3-year retreat, he could go around to the schools. He could be the salesperson, because he had been an art teacher, and he would have done a 3-year retreat. And everyone was all excited, but Lama Tarchin was silent. They finally asked him. He said, no, he doesn't fit for him. He's the wrong person to do that job. And they said, but he did a 3-year retreat, and he's an art teacher. He said, no, he's very angry. But Lama Tarchin did a 3-year retreat. The anger is going to be all gone. And Lama Tarchin said, no, you don't understand. Your past anger created this body. Also, your love created this body. But in other words, he says we're wired that way. It's in our flesh. This is the problem we have. This is what the Buddha saw in the First Noble Truth, that unenlightened existence is dissatisfactory, is even suffering. This is who we are as a human being. We're this incredible mix of positive and negative. But we can't just think it just goes away. So, nonetheless, this is the situation we have. This short mindset prayer with we're talking about the 3 realms. The realm of desire. We use desire to get beyond desire. The next step is to benefit others. If you don't hurt them, but if you can, help. This is called the Mahayana, the Great Path. Why? Because what's significant about what the Buddha did is the fact of his realization. Many teachings all over the world about kindness, patience, loving kindness, compassion, all these things are good. This teaching of this short mindset prayer on page 11 was an Indian teaching in India before the Buddha. But he took it and transformed it because of his realization. These 4 lines correspond to mindsets, realizations, you might say. So we have this realm of desire. Then the next realm higher up is called the realm of form, but it means subtle form. This is the realm of all these visualized beings and deities and very, very subtle divine realms, which are said to actually exist if you attain to that mindset, or you can experience them, briefly in our human way. And finally, the 3rd realm is the arupa, without form, the formless realms. They're called the stations of Brahma, Brahma being the highest god in ancient India. So the 4 temples of Brahma, these are the highest worldly states. And that's what they're talking about here. This first one that corresponds to love. Well, first, before I say anything about love, the first one is a state where you can attain in meditation, and to accomplish it, which the Buddha did, is just endless space. All you're aware of is just space. There's no form anymore, but it's just vastness. But it's still vast in opposition to your idea of yourself as being a separate being. But still, it's an experience of vastness, like us looking through the Webb telescope or something. And then the next one, the mind is just complete consciousness. All you're aware of is your own consciousness. And that's all, no forms, no desires. Then the next level up is, it's emptiness, but it's not the spiritual emptiness, shunyata. But it just means there's just nothing. There's just nothing. And that's, you're sort of resting there. And then finally, the highest of these worldly states is neither perception nor non-perception. So it's a step subtler than just the nothingness. These were held to be the highest states that one could attain to in ancient India. And the Buddha attained to these states working with different teachers. And those teachers, upon his great attainment of these states, said, why don't you take over and you can teach my students, and I'll when I'm gone, you can do all of this. You're a great teacher. And Buddha said, no, it doesn't answer the cause of suffering. What is the cause of suffering? That's why I left my palace. So having attained those, he didn't reject them. And this is what's so important with the Buddhist way. It's not rejecting the reality of those states, but instead, he went on and eventually came to his great enlightenment. He transformed them. So that's why we have it as love. So it's one thing to say in a kind of a apart from the world, great meditator kind of way, well, I'm experiencing, the vastness of space. Yeah, that's good. But the Buddha said that's love. He brought it right back down here. And it's great to say I'm experiencing the vastness of consciousness. It's a very high developed state, no doubt about it. But the Buddha turned that to be compassion. You want to eliminate all beings from suffering and further from the source of their suffering. And then this next highest state, just the great emptiness, he said that's sympathetic joy. If you felt sympathetic joy with every positive thing you saw, because it's this opportunity for enlightenment, and you see the inherent virtuous nature of existence itself. It's not just this, good and bad. The good is reality. The bad isn't. The bad are like clouds covering the sun. And then finally, not just the neither perception nor non-perception, but the great equanimity. And, for us, most of the time, equanimity is just like, I don't give a damn. People zoom around on the highway doing all sorts of stuff. There's an accident on the side of the road. I might be curious in some sort of perverted, compassionate way, but basically I'm just roaring forward. That's how we live. That's the level that we live on. And we can't really criticize ourselves for that because, again, this has been the result of, I believe, lifetimes of training our mind, habituating our mind in kind of a biological survival mode. And again, nothing wrong with that, but we need to see into it more deeply. What's it coming out of? What is making all these football fans wave their flag like that? Because they're sharing a kind of a shared kind of idea and they think that's going to help, but it's coming out of their mindset. Go into your mind. So too for us, when we are pissed off by someone, look at your mind. Yes, there's a trigger that put it off. The trigger's not the problem. We're all walking around like we're a can of gasoline. We have this tremendous potential for hatred, for jealousy, for everything. Someone flips, throws a match, and it blows up. The whole world is chasing around trying to eliminate matches. It doesn't do the job. Shantideva famously said, when confronted by this world of thorns and we are barefoot, everywhere we step, there's dissatisfaction, there's suffering, there's prickling thorns. What do? Well, there's only two solutions. You either try to cover the whole darn world with leather so you can walk barefoot, or you put on a pair of sandals. The Western way is trying to cover the whole world with leather. And we're all busy out there doing that and giving support, and all that's good. But it's only good if you're transforming your mind. You're putting on a pair of sandals yourself. Then you have the ability to help. If your mind is calm and you have experience, you can help someone else. It's kind of like, there's a picture that Gretchen took of, our first child when Megan was an infant. And here I am holding this newborn, and it was like I was holding a poisonous mushroom or something. It's like slightly away from my body. It's like, what the hell? What do I do with this now? But with experience, it's not like that. It's amazing to me, the love that you feel for your own children, for your own grandchildren, But you're in a restaurant, some other kid's making noise. Get that thing out of here. It's like amazing the attachment we have. So we start looking at our mind. What is causing those different reactions? And you start to see it's this clinging to this self. But you've never looked for that self. And now for the first time, you're looking for the self. And you keep looking. You don't find it. I say it's my arm. But where's the my? What makes it the my? So this is what has been built up over 2,600 years, all coming from the Buddha's great enlightenment. And this transformation that he did was truly remarkable, because most of the teachings are brand new teachings, things that came out of his realization. But even the old things that he took were transformed with this idea of bodhicitta, love and compassion for all, and not just the emotional way, but transforming them as the nature of reality itself being bodhicitta. So this verse from, not a verse, we also, practicing Vajrakalaya, as people know, overwhelming as far as the meaning of all these things and the complexity. When you feel, though, that spark of inherent love and compassion and the desire for wisdom, the desire to understand, when we see how our negative activities are just making trouble for ourselves, there's a desire to be free. It's completely natural, and all human beings have it. Even if it's greatly covered over, they're still trying. But they're just using the wrong methods. They're attaching to themselves. They're attaching to their families, me and mine. We think that's the way to do it. So life in that sense is kind of a tragedy, because we're not getting the results that we want, although we desperately want them. The Buddha just gives us the methods to do that. So it starts out with this realm of desire. We are in this realm of desire. And although self-liberation is just staying away from the afflictive emotions altogether, that's provisional. Because the Buddha discovered that we can use desire. We can use love. And that's what the conventional Mahayana is. That's what the Dalai Lama teaches publicly. We generate great love and compassion for other beings, even though we are still attached to ourselves. We don't have omniscience. We have this limited human understanding. But the nature of that understanding is actually vast. So we can be skillful and use love. And this can take us all the way to Buddhahood. The understanding gets subtler and subtler and subtler. And that's the conventional Mahayana. Yana is a path, Maha great. The Mahayana, the great path of love and compassion, can take us all the way there. But then there are even subtler methods, which are called the unconventional Mahayana. Has different names: Vajrayana, Tantra Yana, different names. But there, we're actually using all of the afflictive emotions. So there's great power there, obviously, in our anger and our jealousy and all these. And those basic negative emotions are all represented in the 5 Buddha families and these mandalas, because instead of working like we do with love and compassion on this level with these gross bodies and these gross appearances, the whole scientific appearing world, now we're able to go deeper into the creative spark. And we're using the form of our mind-generated form. And it's very skillful. Of course, it's slipperier. The Tibetans say it's 13 times as powerful, 13 times as slipperier, because it's your mind. Normally, we don't have any control over our mind, so we can get in trouble using that. So it comes out of the loving kindness and compassion and the trainings of calming the mind, looking into the nature of the mind. All of these things are all supportive in a million different ways that we don't even see. But to give you an idea of the power of the subtleness of form, the subtle realm as opposed to the desire realm, you've heard me give the example of someone comes in this room right now, with a pot of gold and just makes a big announcement at the door: hey, I'm giving White Lotus this pot of gold. So, I got some responsibility, even if just legally, for the organization. And I'm thinking, well, that's really wonderful. And then my next thought is, Oh my, we better do something about that. You know, we can we increase our insurance limits right now? Can we call the police? Can we lock the door downstairs so some homeless person doesn't come in here and get tempted by the gold? You know, all these negative thoughts start going. That's the human realm. That's where we live. But if I visualize myself as a Buddha, or myself as a Buddha, as Tara with a golden crown, the gold is there, but I don't have attachment to it like that. I'm attached to this subtle form of it, in the fact that it has existence, but not in that grasping kind of way. So it's more subtle. You can work with all of the emotions that we have, but in these safer ways. Now, they're safer and they're more skillful, but at the same time, there's danger with them. Why? Because if you don't understand that the nature of yourself is this vast loving kindness and compassion, you know, there are psychic benefits that can come from this, and people can use that for their own selfish reasons. So there are protections, many protections. These are called the samayas, the bonds of trust. Because the nature of the deity, we have to understand, you know, the visualized deity is ourself. But what is that nature? Well, Lama Khenpo Sherab, you know, would say that it's like, he says, you know, all those scary movies that you see around Halloween time, you know, there's always someone that's saying, oh, gee, I'm really scared. Maybe I'll go into the basement. And you're all saying, don't go in the basement. And of course, they go in the basement. But of course, everything appears scary because you have fear. You see the shadows as being a threat. Deity practice is just the opposite. Because we're generating great loving and compassion, everything appears as pure. This is the Pure Land, right here and right now. So it's very skillful, because although maybe in my daily life I'm not acting like a bodhisattva, I can visualize myself as a bodhisattva, which is actually more valid than this hunk of flesh running around doing all the stupid thing it does. So skillful, but what's the core? So this is from Gar Rinpoche. Having first given rise to foremost bodhicitta, the deity has come to recognize the circumstantial and adventitious confusion of every sentient beings. He or she has realized our experiences of suffering, so acute and seemingly real, to be the illusory appearances of delusion. Thus, the first attribute of the deity to be accomplished is the knowing wisdom that recognizes all sentient beings' karma and propensities, from which come the confusion and grasping at that which is selfless as though it were a self. So wisdom is underneath it all. With this wisdom, and this is the great advantage to doing meditation, because people have all sorts of ideas about meditation, but you sit down and suddenly my mind is out of control. When you see that, you know other people's minds are out of control too. We're all in the same boat. And so what happens? You naturally, it's like a single mother. She's not going to be derogating other single moms. She knows the struggle that they're going through, the nitty gritty of it. And so there's an immediate understanding. For that matter, in my good old football teams, look at the great unity of these football teams. Someone goofs up, they're not kicking him and spitting on him. They're saying that's all right. You know, they know they've all made these kinds of mistakes, but they share, they have wisdom, they have understanding of that situation. So this is the wisdom of the human situation. And beyond that, the situation of all sentient beings. And so suddenly you have a natural kind of bond with that earthworm or the mosquitoes. And although you might have to do some terrible things, you're not doing it with hatred anymore. It's just, you know, Lama Tarchin said there's a rabid wolf coming through the village. You know, you have to kill the wolf, but you don't have to kill that damn wolf. It's not like that. Instead, that wolf was your mother in a previous lifetime. And you say, Mom, you're really going off the realms here. We have to stop this negative karma. I'm sorry, but you're doing too many people. It's totally different. It's totally different. That is compassion. Knowing the adventitious confusion. In other words, the confusion is not something that's solid and absolute. It's like a cloud passing. that has arisen from self-cherishing and afflictions, the deity has succeeded in tearing down self-grasping through apprehending love and affection. That's how we do it. Thus, his or her second attribute, after wisdom, manifests as loving compassion. In this regard, in the Vajrakalaya literature, there's a very meaningful prayer of blessings that says, all the Buddhas regard beings with a mind of great love. All the Buddhas regard beings with a mind of great love. When its meaning has been understood, each word of this line has the power and ability to calm one's mind. And so here we see how the Buddha transformed these meditative practices. Because if you concentrate on anything, your breath, on a stone, even just a single concept, but the concentrative power of the mind is calming. Is calming. But now the Buddha is saying use love to calm your mind. So that's why at the beginning of all our practices, it starts out with taking refuge, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, but then we're generating bodhicitta, generating our motivation. And at first it seems like this is just pretend. But slowly, we're training the mind. The deity's heart essence is love and affection. The very nature of his or her past pledge to sentient ones is loving kindness. And this is where this is kind of hard for us too, for our own cultural conditioning. The very nature of his or her past pledge to sentient ones is loving kindness. This is touching the vastness, the wisdom of it. Because we are that deity, and yet because all of the things that we see right now in this scientific way seem to be out there, right? But we know even scientifically, it's things happening in the brain. It's not out there. We're misled. The appearance seems out there, but it's actually us that are doing it. So we are that deity. But it's so hard for us to, it's easier to visualize the deity out there. We're using the mind as it's working for us right now, but it's bringing us in the right direction just by doing anything more and more subtle. So with this, we have these teachings. The teachings are necessary. There are a lot of people who want to discard all the teachings and just sort of, get to the meditation, but it's their idea of the meditation. So when the Lama, before giving the empowerment, say for Tara, talks about Tara's story, talks about Tara taking a pledge to be reborn in the body of a woman and attain Buddhahood. She took that pledge. This is, it's myth, yes, but myth is not falsity. There are some truths that are so big that a little scientific objective description doesn't do it justice. We do this even in our daily life. I can say, well, my stomach right now, the pH is 3.75. Or I can say I'm as hungry as a horse. Which one is true? Each time one gives rise to it, even if one is only focused on a tiny insect, this love and affection, it becomes a cause for accomplishing the supreme siddhi. Siddhis are powers. The greatest siddhi is realization, enlightenment. But siddhis are, clairvoyance. Siddhis are the ability to be feeling at one with another person. Siddhis are tolerance. Siddhis are patience. There are all sorts of siddhis, powers. When one repeatedly cultivates an actual feeling of love and affection, that itself is the deity's mind. That is the accomplishment of the Yidam. Yidam's a Tibetan word. It means the indwelling deity. It means maybe the main deity main Buddha that you practice. On this basis, immeasurable great love can arise. And why on this basis? And why great immeasurable love? Because when you have those teachings that Tara just didn't show up today in my meditation, that Tara was there from the beginninglessness, and in this display of how to lead sentient beings, talk about compassion, to the great realization, vowed before a previous Buddha, I'm coming to Buddhahood. I will establish a pure land where all beings come to enlightenment easily, just by being there. Even the birds will be singing the Dharma. Even the sound of the water in the streams is speaking Dharma. This essential point must be understood. I haven't been able to get through Garamche's book. I mean, I just picked this out last night. I just opened up, what do we have today for tomorrow? And there's this paragraph. That's how it works. And, you know, he's not a scholar. And it's just like when you get into the details of the visualizations and the ways that it can help. These visualizations, again, there's so much that it helps to understand. But basically, we are creating ourselves as a Buddha because it's real. It's actually valid to visualize yourself in that way, with this vast mind of loving kindness and compassion. That's the meaning. And then in the end, we dissolve that. So we're not even attached to that method, that subtle method, and you rest in the nature of the mind. It's said to be the creation and the completion of our mind. And it is, it's just an incredible human accomplishment. In India, these practices were very rarely practiced at the time of the Buddha. I think because people had such merit that they didn't need these. I mean, Buddha's own story, you know, he was rejected when he found the middle way between great indulgence and great abnegation. He found the middle way between, came to his great enlightenment, sought out his five former students who had rejected him when they saw him abandon the ascetic path. He had said that I thought that if I could kill something in me, that wisdom would arise. He saw the falsity of that. At that point, they rejected him. They thought he had given up the spiritual path altogether. And with his great realization, he knew where they were, talk about cities, and he walked 100 miles to the ancient city of Varanasi. And then in a park there called the Deer Park, saw them, walked towards them. They saw him coming. And in ancient India, you know, the respect for a teacher, even if you disagreed or the teacher had a different philosophical view, the respect was so great that you would stand up for a teaching, like we do. You know, the president of the United States comes in the room, doesn't make any difference who you voted for. You stand up out of respect for the office. Similar, but even stronger, I think, in India. And they all saw him coming. They had a little pact. Okay, we're not going to stand upright because he's rejected the spiritual path. And then when he got close, one by one, they all started. I'd like to see a movie, someone make a movie of this. They all started involuntarily popping up and standing up because he had such a powerful vibe. So they asked him some questions, they were talking, and then they sat down and meditated together. And bingo, all five of them came to enlightenment. You know, it isn't like that anymore. But you see many stories like that. And the Buddha's passing away, you know, at his funeral. He had people who weren't Buddhist. It wasn't a sectarian thing. Coming to realization the night before he passed away. Just a mystery to some of his sort of more sectarian, less enlightened followers. Why is this guy coming to enlightenment? He's never even taken refuge in the Buddha. Recognized it's the nature of the mind. It's not just clinging to some belief system. So we are just incredibly fortunate that this kind of training, you know, is still hanging in there, but is largely passed away with the conquest of Tibet, which is tremendously unfortunate. But here we see this is certainly with Garba Rinpoche, His Holiness Chetsang Rinpoche too. Dalai Lama is an outward example of it. You know, it's said that in the outer way he appears like do no harm. That's his outer appearance, this inoffensive monk. His inner teachings that he's giving is the great teachings of loving kindness and compassion. But his secret practice is the unconventional Mahayana. And when you hear him teach about the Tantrayana, the Vajrayana, it's mind-boggling. but it doesn't teach that publicly because it's easily misunderstood, and people can use things for their own wrong reasons. Because the Tantrayana, you're using all your negative emotions, the energy of them, not being sucked in by them. You're using all of that together, and it, in the end, they say it arises a state of great bliss, and you can actually ride that bliss to Buddhahood. And so, bliss is kind of dangerous because, when really things are going really good for us, we forget about the suffering of other beings. I think I'll just ride this for a little while. It's just the natural way. All right. So, the book that we've been reading about how the Buddha took these traditional teachings, but he injected bodhicitta into it. He injected realization into it and thereby transformed it, and it became love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and the great equanimity. Truly remarkable, and kind of unrecognized, except by the Buddhists. Okay, let's stop there for this morning. Any questions before we'll take our tea break? And Jack? Oh yeah, we need the mic.
All right, I have a couple questions just because I think it's useful to use this time, and Socratic dialogue or proto-Socratic dialogue, so important in Buddhism. So
I'm still trying to find Socrates. Go ahead.
So in terms of like your teaching, and this isn't necessarily a question, it's more kind of just like I'll get to it. Out of your teaching of like vastness of space and the nature of that being love, I think you really touched on something in how it's really hard for us as Westerners to understand that concept, right? Like, because the word love in our language is like a lot of other conceptions, and it's like it doesn't mean the same thing as like the Buddhists in the Buddhist. There's multiple words for what we're trying to refer to,
right?
But to me, I think a way of coming to an understanding that helped me to understand how how like a Buddhist would think of it is because a lot of people, I think, in the Western culture and in America come to spend a lot of time working towards attaining like a level of wisdom where they manage to get past the base level of appearances and come to a relatively nihilistic understanding, and like an understanding of physics, where it's like, well, maybe God doesn't exist, but I know that like atoms exist, and like there's heat in the vastness of space, and like the laws of gravity exist out there. But if you start to think about that even more, like within the vastness of our conceptualized, as you said, are like out of a biological survival mode, just this like shared mindset of vectoral, like just thinking of an external space, like even within that conception, in the vastness of a space, if you think about like what's happening in complete empty space, like the things that happen are atoms attracting to each other, and like in a way that's, isn't love attraction in our language, and like how we think about, and like compassion is like, you can look at it as just chaos, right? I think a lot of people just think of it as just chaos, that like atoms, they just attract to whatever, or attract or repel from whatever, but really if it's karma, and like there's this greater understanding beyond that I think it's hard to understand.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that.
No, you're right. And I think that's one of the advantages of, again, over 2,600 years, the way they've boiled down these teachings in a way that they're approachable and communicable. Yeah. And so I found the same thing, that kind of questioning of love seems like attachment. Isn't that what we're not supposed to be doing? Yeah. But then they say love is just wanting others to be happiness. And so you see how bodhicitta is the liberation of all of that, because instead of all these concerns about I'm attracted, I like love, the I is always there. Instead, from the get-go, love is simply defined as wanting others to be happy. And then you realize how little time we spend doing that.
I always think of just the birth of civilization and sort of being so centered around a physical hearth of fire, right? Which is like heat, which is like attraction of molecules,
Uh-huh.
which is like the natural order or law of love or
Uh-huh.
compassion, if you want to think of it that way. You know,
Uh-huh.
like, or you could call it chaos if you want to be nihilistic. But like,
Whatever
just
works
thought,
for
you
you
know,
works.
I thought that might be useful in
Yeah.
reframing for some people that are more scientifically minded. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah.
All right. One other.
I was just thinking about when you were telling us about how to, make friends with your enemy. There was that story about Garchen Rinpoche in prison, how he made the prison guards take refuge or something.
Yeah, right. So those of you who don't know, the beginning of the Buddhist path is taking refuge, means seeking protection from suffering. And we do that by seeking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So there's a ritual that does that in an outer kind of way. There are inner ways too, of course. But in the outer way, Garchen Rinpoche's name is Konchog. And Konchog literally means in Tibetan the three jewels. So Konchog is the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And so when he was in prison, he would have a guard. And one time a guard called him and Konchog, and Garchen Rinpoche pretended not to hear. And then he called again, Konchog, and pretended not to hear. Third time, Konchog. So when you take refuge, you repeat the thing 3 times. So he says, see, he's now taken refuge in the three jewels. He will never be born in a lower realm again. No, it's not as powerful if that's your intention, but nonetheless, in the vastness again of the Webb telescope, anything positive is positive. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I have to say too, Anna is out at the Garchen Institute right now. She put a picture on Facebook that just made me cry. It's such a beautiful location out there. They're on this volcanic kind of outcropping, in this vast view. You just see the land, the stars. I mean, it's just, and I think it was a sunset that she put up, but she said, I can't believe I'm here. And you think of the obstacles, coming from Ukraine and all of this. So the great proof in the pudding, actually, it's so hard to see our own Buddha nature. And we're so wired in this biologic way of looking out, again, it's easier to see it in someone else. And this is the great thing of these great teachers, because all of, Frank, with all this talking and all this kind of stuff, suddenly it's very simple. Someone really down to earth, absolutely no BS, and not ideological. That's the thing. It's not latching on to a group of thoughts and just sort of imposing them. It's just so you never know what's going to happen. I really believe you just get from that man whatever you really need at the moment. And that can be nothing happening. There's just limitlessness. This is the limitlessness of it. But the tremendous strengthening and confidence, in Buddhism, confidence, the word is shraddha in Sanskrit. It means confidence more than faith. Again, like Jack was saying, this word love has so many different meanings in English that, it's not precise. Sanskrit and Tibetan have the ability as a consciously created kind of terminology of having this kind of precision like we do scientifically, which is, very helpful, obviously. So like that with faith, it's not just blind faith in things that can't be validated, so to speak. We're just talking about reality. Okay, let's take a break, and then we will ring a bell and do some practice together.
green Tara for you Zoomers.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, the green Tara practice this morning. Again, this is a Vajrayana, a tantric practice, and you can have the experience of kind of being overwhelmed by these kinds of practices, but that's not a bad reaction because it's the practice of body, speech, and mind simultaneously. So it's using everything that we've got, and again, that's a broader type of object of meditation. So again, if we're practicing on our breath or any kind of an object, that's helpful for calming the mind, having something to focus on. But with this, we're using body, speech, and mind simultaneously. So it's a vast kind of like symphony, starting out with refuge, taking refuge, then establishing our motivation. And then what happens is that we say a mantra, and that mantra, the power of it is to dissolve everything. We completely let go of our attachment to ordinary appearances. And so this is experienced in different ways, but even just to do it, even in a mimicking kind of way, is extremely positive because, again, in comparison to this whole world of spinning phenomenon, it's remarkable. But nonetheless, out of this emptiness, this no attachment to ordinary appearances arises, yourself arises as a green letter Tom. This is the seed syllable of Tara. And the whole practice can be done just by focusing on the Tom. So you are that Tom. And if you know the Sanskrit form, that's great, but you can just do TAM. Letters in English works just as well, but they're standing upright. So there's an upright Tom. And it's on a moon, it's on a lotus with a moon disk. And the moon symbolizes the calming nature of, like if you were in India, very, very hot, the light of the moon is very soothing because it's not burning. So it's compassion. That's what it symbolizes. And the lotus that it's on symbolizes our inherent purity, because the lotus grows up out of the mud, opens up, and is this beautiful fragrance and beautiful appearance, but it's always connected to the mud. It's never rejecting. This is the great compassion in bodhicitta. So, at any rate, you are this Tom, and then a Tom, the light goes from that Tom to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, comes back at blessings. You visualize the light going out to all the sentient beings, blessing them, solving their basic problems. Light comes back, and then that Tom transforms. You become green Tara. The description's in the text, but don't worry about it too much. Just the sense that I am this Buddha. And then we go through various practices and chanting. So that's the body practice. And then we'll do some mantra. That's the speech. You maintain yourself as Tara, but you're saying the mantra. And in the end, we dissolve it. And then that's the mind practice. And then in the end, we dedicate the merit from this to all motherly sentient beings. So there's a big process, but not to worry about too much about that, about having to do it perfectly. I mean, these are things that are practiced over a lifetime, and it's good to go. Okay. All right. So little page 4. Oh, also we do some in Tibetan, some in English. Important to understand what you're doing, but yeah, Jack. Oh yeah, Jack's asking a question. If you're visualizing the Tam as TAM in English, are the letters presenting themselves vertically or horizontally? I don't know. I think either would work, certainly. Yeah, because the Sanskrit Tibetan letters, as you know, are stacked vertically. Yeah. For spinning the mantra around it, yeah, it's a little bit smoother too. I'm sure it works either way, but I don't know the answer to that. Okay, little page 4. Choksum kundum hagme la sogla changchum bardu dagsog yam suji drughun si mejig sok lek yob chir changchum semni dambaram gedo. Repeating. Choksum kundum hagme la sogla changchum bardu dagsog yam suji drughun si mejig sok lek yob chir changchum semni dambaram gedo. Choksum kundum hagme la sogla changchum bardu dagsog yam suji drughun si mejig sok lek yob chir changchum semni dambaram gedo. Om Shunyata Jana Benzra Svabhava Atma Koham. Sungzen Dume Junam Dung Bajam Dung Be Nang Le Sung Ho Yang Be U Seden Heng Rang Rig Tam Jang U O Zen Dro De Dro Drum Drim Bajang Yan Ho Serdu Rang Ni Mag Mengu Yan Hing Jang Ni Jog Jin Un Bazen Jam Ni Hing 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 Tam Shonu Su Jang Nun Tar Dang Ran Ne Do Shal Jen Sen Pe Un Ru Lung Tu Zog Pe Ku Ne Sum Dru Sum Od Zer Chuk Kun Ru Yang Kun Ken Se Od Zer Rung Lan Tim Du Sum De Shek Rang Zuk Yum Chen Mo Om Aryantare Samparivara Argam Pradin Saso Om Aryantare Samparivara Adyam Pradin Saso Om Aryantare Samparivara Pushpam Pradin Saso Om Aryantare Samparivara Dupam Pradin Saso Om Aryantare Samparivara Alokam Pradin Saso Om Aryantare Sabharivara Gende Pratitsa Soha. Om Aryantare Sabharivara Nevidye Pratitsa Soha. Om Aryantare Sabharivara Chapta Pratitsa Soha. Ladang lamin human gi me molan hune ong hangun lein rosema romayum lan chang shang tu tung har lan heng tam jang nang yi gor Chudren gyal kun chud he jin amlu nang thong yep e rab jam gyal hui sha layang nag le o zem hag me tru chinu de chen nang chu ke dro nam Mag me kujur nang hi rang dra dro. Om tare tu re so ha. Om tare tu re so ha. Om tare tu re so ha. Om tare tu re so Om tare tu re so ha. 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 Narenhu Re Soha Om 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 Narenhu Re Soha. Page 19. In the unborn Dharma Dhatu abides the Reverend Mother, the deity Tara. She bestows happiness on all sentient beings. I request her to protect me from all fears. Through not understanding oneself as Dharmakaya, one's mind is overpowered by the kleshas. Our mothers, sentient beings, wander in samsara. Please protect them, deity Mother. If the meaning of Dharma is not born in one's heart, one just follows the words of conventional meaning. Some are deceived by dogma. Please protect them, perfect Mother. It is difficult to realize one's mind. Some realize but do not practice. Their minds wander to worldly activities. Please protect them, deity Mother of recollection. Non-dual wisdom is the self-born mind. By the habits of grasping at duality, some are bound no matter what they do. Please protect them, deity of non-dual wisdom. Although some abide in the perfect meaning, they don't realize the interdependence of cause and effect. They are ignorant of the meaning of objects of knowledge. Please protect them, omniscient deity Mother. The nature of space is free from boundaries. Nothing is different from that. Still, practitioners and disciples don't realize this. Please protect them, perfect Buddha Mother. Back to page 10. Om Arya Tare Saparivara Argam Pratitsa Soha. Om Arya Tare Saparivara Pajam Pratitsa Soha. Om Arya Tare Saparivara Pushpam Pratitsa Soha. Om Arya Tare Saparivara Dupam Pratitsa Soha. Om Arya Tare Saparivara Alokam Pratitsa Soha. Om Arya Tare Saparivara Gende Pratitsa Soha. Om Arya Tare Saparivara Nevige Pratitsa Soha. Om Arya Tare Saparivara Shapta Pratitsa Soha. Ladang lamin shumengi jamgi me molan hune hong bang hun le drozema dromayum lan jang shalto shinang nun hu yurang lan him rang yang mi meg manjo chung hing o sam don dam chung hu de wa che tamal she panang si yang yan che. All outer and inner phenomenon melt into light and dissolve into me. I also melt into the non-objectified, unfabricated Dharmadhatu, the ultimate clear light Dharmakaya, the great bliss. All is in the Mahamudra state, the ordinary mind. Ye wali nang wale sang yoni kanya magendro wa yodo chuk luk narang drul ye ye jen bulong gag drub drowe magme utob shuk Dorje Chang, Tilopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dharma Lord Gampopa, Pagmodrupa, and Lord Drikungpa. Please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kagyu-lamas. By this virtue may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health and long life, I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra realize the ultimate state, Buddhahood, I will follow in their path and share the merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself, all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teaching of the great Drikungpa Pratnashri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, until the end of samsara. Sarvamangala. Now, back to the buff-colored prayer book. I think it's page 34, is it? Yes, we're doing the Pure on Aspiration prayers for some people who recently died. Yeah. What's his name? Whiteman? Okay. And you can put anyone else in there that you want. You're silently to yourself too, of course. And again, so, oh yeah, thank you. So again, we're doing this 3 times in Tibetan. This first phrase, this emaho, this is said to be the expression that we all do when you find yourself born unexpectedly or expectedly, either way, in Amitabha's Pure Land. It's just like emaho. That's what it means. But we're doing it in Tibetan for the tune. And at the last line there on page 34, Dakjen, we replace that with Sende. Dakjen is when you're just doing it generally, but Sende when you're doing it specifically for people. But don't worry if you forget and say Dakjen, nothing bad will happen. Okay. Emaho no shar sanje nangwan daye dang isu jo dukje chenpo dang yondu samba du chen tom nam wa sanje jangsam pagme korjingur Ning no shar magdu me ma ine wa chen che jawe jingam der sende nine se mo jerma tak ke wa chen gi marma jobaru Neru gene lang te shal tong shuk deng he lang I mon lam tabani yung ju san je jang sam tam che king eng main rumbar jinji lam tu so Ayanam Hansandriya Buddha Naye Su Imaho no shar sanje lava daye dang Yesu jawo tu ji chen po dang Yondu sempa tu chen top nam la Sanje jan sampad me kor ji kor Diki no shar bhaktu me pa yi Deva chen ji jawa shinkam der Sende dine se bodyor mata Ge wa shenji barma choparu Deru kene nang de shal to shok Deki da ji mon lam tabadi Shok ji sanje jan sam tam chenki Gek me drubar jenji lab tu so Tayan tam pansadriya ava buddha Nisu hai maho No shar sanje nama daye dang Isujo to Jijan Bodang, Yundu Semper du Gentop Nam La, Sanjay Dan Sempan Mingor Jikor, Jiki no Sherbak du Mepa Yi, Deva Shinji Jawa Jinkam Der, Tak Shinji Nezi Bojama Tak, Yewa Shinji Barma Chuparu, Deru Kene Dang Shalo Shok, Deki Daji Molam Tabadi, Shokji Sanjay Jan Sem Tam Shinghi, Yang Medra Bhajan J Lab Tu Sol, Tayata Bansadriyawa Bodhanaye So. Page 32. Om Ali Me Me Hung Ri. 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 Ye Wane Nu Nak Chen Rezek Wang Drum Jur Chik Drowa Jing Hang Malum Ha De Sala Gomar Shu. Okay, thank you all. Yeah. All right. Now we must have announcements. Announcements.
A couple first. Hi, Zoomers. And so this week, Tuesday is White Tara practice, and Thursday is study group. And the following week, the week between Christmas and New Year's, there won't be any Tuesday night or Thursday night. So the center is going to take a little bit of a break. But next Sunday, it's Christmas Eve day, but we will meet here Sunday morning. And New Year's Eve day is the following Sunday. So that Sunday is a big one. In the morning, we'll have our regular Sunday morning, and Tracy Stillerman will be giving a talk on lamas and emperors from the 17th, 18th century, I think it is, and their relationship, how China and Tibet kind of influenced each other, basically.
Does everyone know Tracy?
Tracy Stillerman is Frank's and my daughter, our younger daughter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and she is now teaching at Stanford University, and her daughter Valentina and she are coming. Unfortunately, her husband, who's a professor at Stanford, he can't make it right now.
He's doing professorly things.
He's doing a lot of work to try and keep that professorship going. Yeah, but anyway, so she will be giving the talk. We're looking forward to it. And then in the evening, so we'll do double duty on the 31st. We do Vajrasattva practice, which is the great purification practice of Tibetan Buddhism, where we acknowledge all the past negativities of thought, word, and deed that we've engaged in the previous year and purify them.
Start the year fresh.
So we can start the year fresh at 8 o'clock the next morning on New Year's Day. We'll have 108 light offering. And then we'll followed by auspicious prayers for the new year and also refreshments, if we get that part together.
Though that morning, New Year's morning, is very brief.
Yeah, it's pretty brief. But I also wanted to what? I also
Rent cots for people to just stay.
I also wanted to mention that Kempo, every time I speak with Kempo these days, he says, please, Amala, remind the Sangha to do the White Tara mantra accumulation. And on our website, on the schedule page, there's a button where you can report your, I mean, nobody's going to know how many you're reporting or, but there's a total. It keeps tallying them up when you put them in. So if you're doing White Tara mantra, please go there. And this was actually requested by one of our members by Eileen in Buffalo a few months ago as a way to continually purifying and building positive merit to increase our building fund. So thank you, Eileen and Kempo, for the reminder. So do that. And then I'm going to turn it over to Chuck right now, and he's going to tell you about another big thing coming up here.
Okay. Well, I have been in and out from here, so I don't know how much this is on everyone's radar, but the big fundraiser is coming up February 4th, right? Rock the Losar lives again. Those of you who've been around long enough, remember we did this four or 5 years in a row long before the pandemic, and it was a smashing success. So basically, this is what I wanted to let you know. First of all, the committee, Michelle, Stormy, who's not here today, Sarah, who's not here today, Charlie, who is here today, and Gretchen's sort of the mother hen keeping us all in line. We're spearheading this, but we need other help, and there's ways to get involved without being on the committee. In fact, most of the hard work is done. But what I wanted to just bring attention to is you'll see some beautiful posters out there. If you have an urgent need to take a couple today, you could, but what we're going to do is do like a sign up thing so people can write where you're going to post them, and it'll have a little bit of organization, but we'll probably do that next week or right after New Year's. The other way we could get involved, we need people to advertise, get the word out. And we really do want to raise a lot of money for the Dharma Center. One other way we can raise money is through the raffle. So the event's going to be at the Love and Cup, and we have the Buddhahood and Bare Bones, two great bands that have significant followings. They're playing for free that day, and hopefully we'll bring all of their fan base with them. So Frank Bohm's bands, yeah. We will have at the very least, we'll have some sort of 50-50 raffle. But if the committee can get someone, or if someone here has energy and wants to run more like a basket raffle, we're looking for someone who might have experience and energy to lead that charge. And then once that's in place, what we would probably want is donations of things to raffle. So people can donate a basket, fill it with interesting things, or record. We have one, but we want to get 5 or 6 baskets or other items. So I guess at this point, if you have energy or experience running a basket raffle or other kinds of silent auctions, speak to us soon and we will bring you into the fold. So is there anything else, Gretchen, related to the Rock the Losar? Okay, so we want your energy and your inspiration. People donate, they will take a basket, they will create a basket and fill it with, so you might do like a coffee chocolate basket. One year I did for another organization, I did a jazz basket, and I came up with jazz CDs and tickets and things. But you're donating this stuff, or you're getting people to donate. You're in charge of filling that, and then you raffle it off, and people can bid on it, either auction style, or they can put X number of tickets in to try to win that. So it's basically, what we don't want to do is have the Dharma Center buy $800 worth of gift cards and raffle them off. We don't want that overhead. We want people to solicit or those donations or donate them yourself to help raise money. Yes, Keith?
No, we're doing that.
yeah, we're going to do that as well. That would be in addition. Okay. So,
Okay.
again, Michelle, myself, or Charlie would be good people today to talk to if you want to get involved. Thank you.
Okay.
One quick note for Zoomers and anyone who might be a Zoomer. We have simplified the meeting numbers. There's only 2 meeting numbers that you would join anything on. There's the number we've been using for Sundays, and then there's the number which is used for Vajrakalaya. If you try and log in with the wrong number, you'll get a message that such meeting does not exist. If you're really lost, go back to the website. You will find the right links.
Thank you.
The announcement does when you log in, but if you try and log into a number that no longer exists, all you get is no such. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from Zoomers?
Could you give us an email that if we want to contribute something towards the basket, who notify or confer
Yeah.
with?
Roberta's wondering how to notify someone long distance for the baskets. Who should she notify? Talk to? We got Chuck, Michelle, and Charlie here. But I think she wants to talk to somebody about doing a basket.
Oh, wish you could have my. If you email Gretchen info, yeah, and they'll put it onto the committee.
All right.
Thank you. That would be great.
All right. Okay, we're almost done. I'm thinking we should not allow my granddaughter Sarah to do the raffle because she always wins raffles. Right. All right. All right. All right. Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Pickle Friday.
All right, Don. Free and clear.
Free and clear. Yeah, I haven't been saying that for a while.
No, you have not.
Wow.
Maybe that's when we were reading that book.
That could be. Maybe I'm degenerating. That could be it.
You want to be on the committee? Yes. All right, we got another one.
The more things we have, the more people are gonna, get excited and. Yeah, I know. On the way out, I have to get you your mom's bag and Christmas card, and also I have,